We are honored to have with us today Marilyn Williams, pastor of Salem Mission Faith Ministries Church. Since the moment she and her husband, Benny Williams, arrived in Salem from Chicago decades ago, they have worked tirelessly to better the lives of our diverse community and connect people from every part of it. Much of that is as members of the NAACP Salem branch, and even as we speak, we're watching history unfold here, across the country, and around the world in the wake of the murder of George Floyd. Speaking at Floyd's funeral June 4th, Reverend Al Sharpton said, "This is a different time, a different season. But the marchers say it over and over, we are done with dying." We know, Pastor Marilyn, you and your husband are hearing from everyone, especially at that live town hall with the NAACP monthly meeting with hundreds of participants, state, city, government, law enforcement, people. What I want to know, Pastor Marilyn, is this different? Has the time come for real change? Real change.
Yes, this time is different. It is time for real change. I am so happy to see the young people who have awakened to see injustices that's going on and beginning to speak out. That's very important because for so long, people will say, well, the millennials are not interested in what's going on, but they are. It's just what shakes them. And even when you look back at the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, all the way up through the 90s, you could see there was changes. And believe it or not, there's always one death that changes history, that strikes a chord with the nation. When we talk about the Tillman murder, when his mother brought Tillman to Chicago and showed his open casket of what the KKK had did to him, Emmett Till, people were shocked. People were angry. And then at the same time, when the NAACP was born in 1909, it took the lynchings in Springfield, Illinois, to bring about a change. And so there wasn't just one death, but several deaths that happened in that lynching. So when you look over history, time and time again, there's usually one death that seems to push where we need to go. And unfortunately, for George Floyd's death has been that pusher. Yes, we have lost Tiana, Trayvon Martin, so many, Eric Garner. We have lost so many, but it took the real, how can I say it, watching George Floyd die in front of millions of people. And what most people don't realize, that was an actual lynching that we were viewing. And so for many African Americans, we've talked about lynching in history, but to actually see that in progress is more than a person can bear. It was very hateful. It was very hurtful. They treated him worse than an animal. And when you look at that, and for young people to see that at that moment, they realize this is not a game. This is real life that you're talking about. This is not a video game that you can just punch, buttons in and they'll come back. George Floyd will never come back. He left a family. And so when you look at that and you look at the policing, and that has come all the way back from slavery, from slave catchers, catching slaves, even freemen who were free and they had never been slaves, but forced to go to the South and become slaves and was captives. There has always been a tragedy and always hurtfulness. And so it's time for a change. And so people need to wake up. And I'm very proud of the young people waking up and saying, I can't breathe. I'm tired of dying.
One of the biggest things that people are talking about, and I'm asking you, when they say being Black in America should not be a death sentence, you have really worked hard in that era. In April of 2019, you made a passionate plea as to why we need to end the death penalty. But that's just what you did. You couldn't be there at that hearing. You had to send a
Right.
letter, but it worked. And people may not realize the power of their voice and young voices. They don't understand that, or could they? Or do they get the idea from you they really could make a difference even though they're young?
Yes, they can make a difference. Coming from Chicago, my mother was very avid regarding civil rights and duties as a citizen and what her rights were. Growing up in the Jane Addams projects, learned early on how important voices are, how important to get out and speak to people who can make the changes, to leaders who can make the changes. And my mother showed me how to do that along with several other of the older generations. And I will tell any young person, you need to sit down. They really need to sit down and talk with the older generations and hear the things that they went through and hear the things that how they work things out to make it through where they are today. And when you listen to them, you can get a lot of wisdom and bits of information on what to do, how to deal with leaders, how to get people's attention. And many times our students in school becomes very discouraged, I would say, because they feel like it's no use. I can't learn with so much racial prejudice going on and racial bias. I'm not smart enough, or if I'm smart, I'm an outsider. No, you need to learn. You need to write because the saying goes, the pen is mightier than the sword is so true. A letter can go a long ways, and that is a form of your voice. It can go a long ways and catch a person's attention when they don't have time to listen to you, but they have the time to read. And so if you can write and tell them how you feel and put it and make them see with their mind, which I call the mind movie, it can move many mountains. It can move people to where you want to hear them. I've learned also growing up, I was 21 years late. So I'm going to give that announcement. I was 21 years late. So I was the youngest of my mother's children. But there was something that I learned, and that was never to accept the word no. If they told me no, there's always another way to come around to find the word yes. And so many times your leaders will tell you, no, it can't be done. You as a person need to find another route to go to make that no become a yes and prove those leaders that they're wrong, that you know what you're talking about. You have a vision and you have to help them see that vision. And many times we want to give up. Don't give up the ship. Don't give up just yet. That's why, you hear many captains say, this captain stay with the ship because he's still trying to save that ship. He's still trying to make a way that is possible that everyone can be saved, as many people as possible. So when you look at history, history repeats itself if you don't take the time to look it over, read and look through things and see how things are going. So this is a new day for us in history. Years ago, I had a student ask me what was so important about history. And I asked him, well, what did you do yesterday? He was able to tell me. I said, what did you do last week? He could tell me that too. And I said, well, what did you do a month ago? He could tell me that. Well, what did you do last year? One thing that you did last year was special. He could tell me that. I said, that's history. That's what makes history so important. That's your history, and the history that you read is the history of somebody else through their eyes. But I want you to know you have to ask more than that one person in that book to get to the true meaning of history. And then the light came on and they understood. So this is history that we're seeing. And a lot of young people are standing up this day in history to take notice and to voice their protest and to voice their opinion and to say laws need to be changed. And they're absolutely right. And it's not only just the laws that need to be changed, but the way that police handle citizens, not just African Americans, but all citizens, especially citizens of color. We also need to change the policeman union board, because they keep a lot of those bad officers and protect a lot of those bad officers. And the time has come when you begin to look at police officers and abuse that's going on, and you begin to look at their records, you begin to see that there's a pattern going on with certain officers. And my feeling is, if an officer has 3 or more complaints, they need to be dismissed from the system. They should not be a part of the police force. It should not be a part of the law enforcement, because they're now becoming abusers. And don't allow them to go to another city or another town to become an officer. You know, you can't beat the law saying for criminals, 3 strikes, you're out. Well, it should be the same for law enforcement officers, I should say, who abuse and have 3 or more complaints. They should be dismissed as well, because they are no longer protecting the people. They are now becoming abusers, and they're becoming doing criminal activities themselves.
And you work with local law enforcement. How is that going?
We work with law enforcement. We talk with them. And when it comes time for training, they're asking us, to come in and be part of their in-service training. And talking with some of the officers, I may not agree with them on everything, and they may not agree with me on everything, but they will listen. They will hear me. They will hear other people who has a concern. I know it's not easy out there. I understand that when they stop a traffic stop, that's one of the most dangerous stops that you can make. I do understand that. But believe me, not everyone is driving around with guns, and not everyone is a criminal, because there's just as many of us people of color who are afraid of a traffic stop, because we feel like we may not make it out of that traffic stop alive, because you have read over and over and heard stories over and over where people were stopped for traffic, didn't do anything, and come up dead. And, I hate to say it, but there are officers who will lie, will not tell the truth, just like regular citizens will lie and will not tell the truth. Am I saying all police officers are bad? No, I'm not saying that. But what I am saying, for those good police officers who are following the laws, who are doing what they can do, and you got a bad apple in the bunch, you need to speak up. You need to let your voice be heard. And that's one reason why I just feel like the police union has too much power, until good cops are afraid to speak out because they fear for their lives. Now, that's the one time I can say they are truly afraid for their lives, because they fear that someone can happen to them, that someone may attack them if they speak out or ruin them. And I don't want to see that happen, but I don't want to see a bad cop continuously to abuse citizens, especially citizens of color, to the point that many African American children and students do not like police officers. They don't look at them as officer friendly. They look at them as he's going to hurt me. They're afraid. And I can understand that, but at the same time, I also know that there are good cops out there who really care about our kids, who really want to work with our kids and show them the right way. It's I blame the media, because too much the media, which is the entertainment, put too much, how can I say it, stereotypical criminal shows on all the time, glorifying crime, and it's always with people of color. That's not true. We're not always thinking of crime. We're not always thinking about trying to hurt someone, but that image has been out for so long till it just makes me sick when I see that all the time, that I don't want to watch television. So I'm at the point I don't watch television very often, because there's other things that I can do to make my time much better. And that is working with people, working with the police, trying to find a way how to close the gap, trying to find a way how we can come together and make things much better for all the citizens here in Salem, and how to break down the true root of racism. And once again, I just want to continue to tell the young people, get out there and vote. Yes, I want you to protest. Yes, I want you to be able to make your voices be heard. But while you're making your voices be heard, I also want you to come to that table and you choose some good leaders who can speak for you and give your demands of what you want. And this is what you're looking for, and start working towards something better. And don't let the distractors come in and tear up your system and tear up your city in the name of peace, because that's not peace when they're tearing up and destroying things. That's not us, and then we take the blame for it.
What would you like people to do when combating racism?
When combating racism, I would like to see one thing: people speak out. When you see something wrong, instead of walking by and shaking your head and not saying anything, speak out. Let the folks know, I disagree with that. That is not okay. And as we have always been taught in school, if you see something wrong and you don't speak out, you're saying it's okay. So we need to speak out and say it's okay. If you feel like you want to do even more, I would tell you to join the NAACP or some of the other grassroots organization, community-based organization, to help with combating the racism that's going on. The NAACP is the oldest civil rights organization in the nation. It is 110 years old, and we're still fighting. And it's not just a Black organization. It is an organization made of white people, Asians, Jews, Gentiles, you name it. The founders were white men, white women, Black men, Black women, and Jews. So you have a nice array of inclusiveness at the beginning, and we still are included today. And so we're always looking for members. We're always looking for people to stand up and work with us and be with us and help build up this city. You know, we say that Salem means peace. Well, we have a long way to go before we get to the peace. We're at some beginnings, we're working some, but our leaders as well as our community members need more help. We need to come together more. We need to build not only build a bridge, but we really need to come together and form our ideas and look at being change agents and become what the rest of this country need to be, and see that we can do it, become the model city, because we have already started that by talking and building relationships. And that is so important. Talking and building relationship, having dialogue, and not being afraid to speak out about racism. Yes, I understand there's a lot of people who will disagree with me. I can take that. I know there's a lot of people out there who are just as hateful can be. I can understand that too. You can't change those, but the ones who are willing to change and see the difference, that is who you want to be on your side. That is what you need to do. And this country is not just white, it's not just Black. It wasn't built on just Native Americans. It wasn't built on just African Americans. It wasn't built on just whites. It was built as a melting pot. People hate that word, but it's true, because we all came here for something. Some of us was forced over here, but many of us came because we wanted to be here. And then to change the makeup and look down on different groups of people is wrong. It really is wrong. We're all the same, because if you really think about it, our blood is red. I have yet to meet a person with green blood or yellow blood or pink blood, or purple blood. We all bleed red. And whether they like it or not, science have proved it. that every person has come from one particular woman from Africa, which is, we all know is Eve, for those of us who believe in the Bible. Her gene is in every person around the world. So her DNA, I would say, is there. So we don't have time to be hateful and build strife and you go this way and you go this way. And it's wrong to use religion as a tipping point, because too many times when we use religion, and this is the reason why people should be oppressed, you're absolutely wrong. People should not be oppressed because of religion. That is the wrong idea, and that's the wrong use for that. Religion is to encourage people, bring people together, teach people love, teach people peace within themselves, out themselves, to be an encouragement to others when folks are down, and not to push your own ideas and your beliefs on how a country should act.
What you really are talking about is making that living, breathing document known as the Declaration of Independence, realizing it. Because when you think of our country's entire history, we have been moving in that direction, but ever so slowly and with
Right.
many back steps. But the impetus is there. All men are created equal with
Yes.
equal rights. And
Yes.
we have a new generation now that really does look like, when you look at that sea of faces and every bit of video we see from across the nation,
Yes.
it's not just Black voices. This is America's demographic, which is changing.
That is true. And you know what really is beautiful to me is when you look around the world and you see other nations standing up saying the same thing. I can't breathe. So they're standing in unison with these young people. And that's really what makes it a beautiful thing to see. This is a new time, a new age. This is a different time, a different age. And so it's not just America itself, but America has allies all over the world standing up with our young people saying, we hear you, we are for you, we are with you. And that is what's so important.
Please give us the website for the NAACP Salem chapter, please.
Okay. The NAACP Salem chapter website is sknaacp1166.org.
This has been a wonderful conversation, truly illuminating, and I can't thank you for your articulating what people are trying to tell the rest of the community about why this is so important. It's beyond no peace, no justice, no peace. It's a worldwide concern.
Yes.
It looks like this really is a time of change. Thank you. We have been talking to Marilyn Williams, pastor of Salem Mission Faith Ministries Church. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.